Hi, my name is Justin Wahby. I am currently 16 years old and I am a incoming senior, and I currently study under Dr. Natsuki Fukasawa as well as Dr. John McCarthy at the San Francisco Conservatory of Music, pre-college.
My name is Sophia Suwiryo, and I am 11 years old from Cincinnati, Ohio. And I have been playing piano since I was 4. And I study with Dr. Takako Hayase at the University of Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music at Prep Department. And besides playing piano, I love to play chess and compete in chess tournaments. I love to sing, and I am part of my school choir, and I'm also a cantor at my school.
Cool, nice to meet both of you. So now that it's summer, and even before then, since we've been in quarantine, what are some things you've been working on, either music or non-music?
Well, in terms of music, in terms of repertoire-wise, I've been working a lot on the Tchaikovsky Piano Concerto No. 1, and also some repertoire to help me prepare for college auditions because I have that coming up. And then in terms of non-musically, I'm taking a couple of college courses in business actually, because that's one of the majors I want to do in college, perhaps a dual program in music performance as well as business as well. So I'm doing a couple of college courses in that, as well as like a research program in that as well. And then also, I'm not really binging too many shows. I usually like watch, I would say like one movie, like usually every like 2 nights, starting at like 11 o'clock to like 2 or 3 a.m., whether it be like some really long Quentin Tarantino film or like some comedy or something. So
that's cool. What's the most recent movie you've watched?
It's a really old movie, but I watched Django Unchained.
So I actually just recently did my live Q&A and my virtual concert at the Long Long Foundation Instagram. And yeah, that was one of the things I did for the music thing during quarantine. And of course, I've been learning on new repertoires. I've been doing like a lot of music collaborations during this pandemic, and also piano duets. And yeah, for my collaborations, I'm working with my chamber group. So we recently just did this collaboration, and we've been playing this piece called Libertango by Astor Piazzolla, and it was a really fun piece. So outside of music, I've been chilling a lot with my parents, and yeah, we have been watching family movies, and I've been baking a lot, and yeah, that's probably it.
What are your favorite either composers or time periods to perform from, and what do you kind of work with the most? What are you most comfortable with?
I would really go with the Romantic period and the Contemporary period. And my favorite composer is definitely Chopin, for sure.
I used to really like the classical era the best. Now, actually, I'm more leaning towards the Baroque era, which is rather funny. Although I really do love my romantic pieces such as like Chopin, Debussy, and Rachmaninoff, all that good stuff. I've been learning some very intriguing Bach Pillin fugues as well as French suites, and they're quite. If you actually dissect them, you actually like take the time to actually develop everything. It's quite enjoyable to play. So I think, although I never really developed an appreciation for Baroque in the past, now it's more gratifying to play.
Moving on to this sonata specifically. So what's your favorite part of either the whole sonata or the first movement? You can be as specific as you want, or just something interesting you want to share to our viewers about it.
Let me pull up the music real quick.
The thing that I like about the sonata is that it has a lot of mood changes in it. And like for the first movement, it involves like lots of sudden dynamic shifts and tempo changes. Like the thing that's like unique about the sonata is that it is the only D minor sonata that Beethoven composed other than his Ninth Symphony, I think. Yeah, his Ninth Symphony. And I mean, yeah, we on the first page we already see 3 different characters and tempo indication. And yeah, I mean, I think this movement is so unpredictable, yet so concentrated in a way that we can still feel the excitement and his feeling of joy with a bit of agitation on some parts. And I can also feel that when Beethoven composed this sonata, he felt scared and questioning about his own hearing, which might get weaker each day. And yeah.
Well, of course, for all pianists, the first image that should undeniably pop up in your head in terms of the Tempest Sonata would, of course, be a storm, because that's essentially what Shakespeare's Tempest was about, a storm. So in all of this, you have, like, the way how my teacher and I discuss this is in the beginning, you have, I would say, like a quiet rumbling, not even a rumbling, just like a sense of calm. And then leading up to some just like rapid winds in like the Allegro, and then the pinnacle with the dissonant chord. And after that, you have the same motif over again, and then you have an outburst leading up to the whole entire storm surrounding you.
Yeah, same thing with me. I definitely agree that it is a storm because tempest means storm, obviously. Well, but to me personally, I think at the end the storm ends. So in the beginning, it just starts out really calm and quiet. Then it starts getting like bigger and bigger, and it starts getting like even more harsh and destroying things. But then it just calms down at the end, and everything is peaceful.
How do you think the like recitative part at the in the middle plays into this like storm kind of story? And I've always been curious about this. Like, what do you imagine that part to be?
Like I think it's kind of like dreamy, but then like when it like goes to the next part, I think probably somebody just woke up brutally because of the storm.
Makes sense. I would not want to be caught in the middle of the storm asleep. It's a beautiful section. What are some technical difficulties or musical difficulties, if you want, that you encountered while practicing this piece? Justin, I know it's been a while, but if you still remember.
I vividly remember some of the difficulties I had playing this piece. It's not really that subtle, but one of the most subtle things in the whole entire piece that I would say I think far surpasses the rest is a usage of two-note slurs, especially in the beginning. I used to just play it straight as if it was just one whole slur on the whole entire section. And yes, you have to look at the big picture, but at the same time, the two-note slurs, the dictation that everyone should know is accented first beat and then less emphasis on the second beat. So if you had to apply that to every single two-note slur in the Allegro section, as well as all the way to the first theme, it's quite hard trying to have that emphasis as well as keeping a big picture of a crescendo, diminuendo, and then a gradual crescendo to the first theme. So I think that's quite difficult.
Finally, do you have any recording recommendations or go-to recordings for this piece?
I personally I listened to Daniel Barenboim too and Emil Gills. That's how Emil Gills. And yeah, I think I really listened to those recordings, and actually they really helped me grow with the piece. And yeah, those are the 2 recordings that I absolutely adore for this sonata.
Well, to the viewers, I hope that you've enjoyed the insights that these pianists have brought, and please enjoy their playing of the first movement of the Tempest. And thank you for your time, both of you.
My name is Christian Chiu. I'm 17 years old. I currently live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I've been studying piano for almost 12 years now. I currently study with Professor Natasha Snitkovsky as well as Professor Boris.
So I'm Riley Kong. I'm currently 15 years old. I am a rising junior at Archbishop High School in San Jose, California, and I've been studying piano for about 10 years now, and I study with Dr. John McCarthy.
Outside of piano, what have you been working on recently?
So I am interested in like STEM fields, so I've been doing a lot of programming, and I've been teaching like middle schoolers how to program in Python, and I also am attending this summer program where I'm doing like artificial intelligence, like machine learning on game theory, and I'm also really interested in like linguistics, so I'm doing a project with that.
Oh, sounds interesting. I don't know if what I've been doing is necessarily as exciting as that, but I feel like with the extra time, I'm spending a lot of time reading as well as spending time with my family. So that's been really good. We play a lot of ping pong, which is fun.
What's your favorite book that you've read recently?
Ooh, recently, I've been reading Catch 22. I feel like usually I tend to read more nonfiction, but I think it's good to read fiction once in a while because it seems very interesting.
I love Catch-22. It went right over my head when I first read it. I picked it up in like 7th grade, and I was like, this looks like a good book, and I did not understand it.
Yeah.
What other pieces are you currently working on, just in your current rep?
Currently, I'm working on playing this Hungarian Rhapsody number 2. And yeah, that's like my main project through the quarantine period.
My main project so far has been another Beethoven sonata in A major, Opus 101. And so that one's been definitely taking up a lot of my time, but I've also been learning a few smaller things.
Do y'all play any specific composers like more frequently, or any specific like musical time periods more often? And if so, how do you think you treat Beethoven, or if necessary, middle Beethoven specifically, differently?
I would say that growing up, I've definitely, although I wouldn't say I necessarily play like one composer a lot, I definitely feel that I have played a lot of Chopin also and Mozart. And so my approach to Beethoven, I think I sort of think of it differently because I feel like Beethoven, for me, the most important parts are like contrasting passages as well as like rhythmic drive. And I think that really characterizes much of Beethoven's like output. And so in comparison to maybe if I usually play Chopin or Mozart more, I feel like I have to focus more on, or like focus maybe a little bit less on like just bringing out like the melody and more on more complicated ideas that occur in Beethoven's pieces.
Yeah, I think especially for like actually for all of Beethoven's sonatas, like the rhythm is so integral compared to like romantic era pieces where there's a lot more room for rubato, and obviously rhythm is still important, but there's just like a lot more flexibility, it feels like. So since this is the Beethoven Sonata project, what are your favorite Beethoven sonatas?
I actually really like Opus 109.
So I would say there are so many that are great, like probably all 32 are masterpieces, but I would say that my personal favorites, definitely Opus 101. I feel like, especially because I'm learning it, I've really come to appreciate it, as well as Opus 10 number 2 is probably my favorite of the earlier ones. And then obviously there are so many of like the famous ones and the late ones, they're all just so excellent.
Moving on to this sonata specifically. So first of all, what are some technical difficulties that you've had with either the whole piece or maybe your movement specifically of the Tempest?
In relation to the second movement, I think, because it was slow, I think I tended to just like fall into a groove, and stop like expressing anything. So it was really, I thought, hard to bring out like unique ideas through that because it was just a different style than I was used to.
Yeah, I would say that overall, obviously, there are definitely technical difficulties like throughout the entire piece. I would say for the second movement specifically, I find it challenging considering I think it's marked Adagio, but basically, I think that in order to keep the line like going and not make it sound stagnant, I find that pretty challenging, as well as sort of bringing out. I think in general, the second movement is sort of characterized by it's like an orchestra-like sound because there's so many different motifs that sound very similar to those that you would hear in an orchestra, and I think bringing all of those out is pretty challenging.
Do you have any advice for maybe any viewers who are also struggling with the second movement on how you kind of get around that like stagnation?
I would say like probably try to find like different points throughout the piece or like interesting points, and then you can kind of bring out what makes it different, and also just try to express yourself because the second movement's like tempo wise and dynamics wise it's very different than the other movements, so it's really important that you can bring out your feelings through that.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree with that. I would say that something that's helped me is that I think originally the way I was like feeling the rhythm and counting in my head was it made it more stagnant because I was like thinking in my head like every single beat. Whereas if I sort of think of a more fluid idea and maybe like a flowing kind of thing, then it makes it feel a lot less stagnant.
Do you have a favorite part of this movement or something interesting about this movement that you want the viewers to pay attention to?
There's a part like halfway through the movement where it kind of sounds like the Flintstones opening theme song, and when I first heard it I like kind of did a double take, but that was like pretty interesting to me.
The parts that I like the most are the melodic lines in the right hand that happen like I think twice near the um, end of like the original material. I think that that's really powerful, and that just the melody itself is actually really beautiful. Even though I don't know if people necessarily think of Beethoven immediately as like a melodic composer, I think that those parts definitely show that he is.
For sure. For the viewers, I hope you appreciated the insight that these two pianists have given us, and please enjoy their performance of the second movement of the Tempest Sonata. All right, bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So can you introduce yourself to the audience?
I'm Alex Chen. I live in St. Louis, Missouri. So I'm one of the few people in H.O.P.E that is actually from the Midwest. I currently study piano with Zina Ilyashov. I've been studying with her for the past 7 years, and this is my 10th year of piano.
I'm Charlotte Wong. I'm 17 years old, and I studied with Corey McVicker for the past around 5 years at the San Francisco Conservatory of Music. I've played piano for the past 12 years, and I recently graduated from the pre-college program at SSCM. And yeah.
Congratulations. Did you also graduate high school? Is that how it works? Or
Yeah. I'm going to be attending college, and I'm going to be majoring in microbial biology.
wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
So when did you start piano and how did you first begin?
I started playing the piano when I was 5 years old. How I began was actually it was at a family friend's house, and they had a piano there, and I started playing it, and I wouldn't stop playing it. And they told my parents that they should probably try to get me onto piano. And then my parents finally got me an upright piano, and that's how I started.
I'm glad you went to that family friend's house. That's great. Outside the piano, what do you like to do, and what have you been doing recently now that it's summer?
Well, Disney Plus gave us like the Hamilton, so I had to watch that. So now I'm like binging all the other movies on the service because my mom wants to cancel that after 1 month. So currently I'm watching the entire Avengers series and all the other movies that I haven't watched yet. I've been spending a lot of time on the H.O.P.E project as well. So yeah, I'm really in and out of it. Yeah, I'm kind of the guy that is just all over the place when it comes to H.O.P.E. So
Yeah.
I also work on a model rocketry project, which is 3D printed. And so far, 3D printed model rocketry has been a recipe for disaster. So yeah, that's where I am right now.
Before quarantine started, I really enjoyed getting boba with friends and going out a lot. But now that there's been quarantine, I've been actually making my own like matcha lattes at home a lot. I've also been cooking quite a lot recently, and I've just been FaceTiming friends. And I started watching K-dramas a while ago, and I actually really like them.
Cool. Moving to piano, what repertoire are you currently working on?
I'm currently working on Tempest, actually, the first movement. I have a recording session like 2 weeks, and also Liszt's Rigoletto concert paraphrase. And I'm currently working on finishing up the full concerto, Rachmaninoff's second piano concerto.
Wow, that's cool. What are your favorite either composers or time periods to perform from?
Oh, definitely romantic. My favorite composers, probably Chopin. I know that's like super mainstream, but like a dark horse, I would say maybe Lowell Lieberman. Is that how you pronounce his name? His music is unique, but at the same time, you can feel like you can create a phrase with it, and you can tell a story. So I find that really interesting.
Cool. How do you think you treat Beethoven, especially like middle period Beethoven, differently than romantic music?
Yes. For romantic pieces, I tend to take the liberty in expressing myself, whereas Beethoven, it's very strict in the score, obviously with the dynamics. I think there's more freedom in romantic pieces, such as, especially Rachmaninoff. It's more up to interpretation than sometimes Beethoven sonatas.
I feel like the further back you go in classical music, there's more of a spiritual connection. You need to, especially with Bach, Beethoven, these really famous. They're famous for a reason. When you listen to their music, you can hear. You might not be religious. I'm personally not religious, but you can hear the light of God through these pieces. So it's just something very different with their music, and it just you need it needs to be expressed. The greatest express it very well.
As you mentioned, that the movement is like very driven and kind of just like repetitive, continuous.
Mhm.
Do you have any imagery or any like thoughts in your head that help you express that?
Mhm.
Czerny wrote a really, really great book on all of Beethoven's sonatas. And as a student of Beethoven, he's basically the best interpretation that we have.
Yeah.
And he said about the third movement, it's got to sound like a horse running or something very close to that. Like a horse is like running away and galloping. So getting it to have that rhythm and that sense of flow while also adhering to the score, which is very repetitive, it's very difficult. And making something interesting out of that is also very challenging.
So what my teacher told me, well, he talked about this, and he said it's a very stormy piece. And so if I just try to picture that in my head as I'm playing, and it's just try not to rush while doing that. And also, Beethoven was starting to go deaf around this time. He wrote the Tempest around 1800, I believe. So I could really feel his frustration, especially in the third movement.
I see. Is there any part specifically that kind of you think embodies that frustration, or like what makes it very apparent?
I have the book actually. Let me look through it really quickly. Around measures 271, there's repetitive trills in the right hand. And what I usually do is I try to make the intensity more and more for each one, since it's repetitive. So that's what I try to do. And I think that part, I can really feel the frustration in his music.
I see. Do you have a favorite part of either this movement or the whole piece, or something interesting about it that you'd like the viewers to notice while you're performing?
I think my favorite part would be the beginning of the first movement, since it's just so dramatic and you don't know what's going on. Well, you don't know what's going to be next. And I think it's just really special, since I don't think there's not very many sonatas that start off like that, I think. And I think that just dramaticness brings out the contrast between the different parts of the movement.
I'm going to talk a little bit about the first movement because I played that as well. It's really, really interesting because this was the first time ever in classical music Beethoven smashed a rule, which is he started on the dominant chord of, right? The first chord is he rolled the dominant, and this was at a time where it was unheard of to start on anything but the tonic. So I don't think we don't really know the actual key that we're in until around halfway through the first page, which is ridiculous at the time. Beethoven, in every single one of the sonatas, he breaks a rule.
Yeah.
And he just does it because he can, and he's amazing. But I think when you shatter the rules, it has to be done for a good reason, right? And that opening chord is definitely a good reason.
Yeah, for sure. Finally, do you have any recording recommendations for this piece?
Oh, I really like Barenboim's recording. I always listen to that for reference, I think. Yeah, that's my favorite one.
Also, Schiff gives like really good master classes on all of the Beethoven sonatas. I think they're like called lecture recitals. So those are a good place. I always start with those whenever I'm like learning a Beethoven sonata because it's just so easy. Like it's just 45 minutes of free information, and it really helps get the wheels turning.
Finally, do you have just any extra thoughts you want to share?
If you're like looking for a Beethoven sonata to play, I would definitely recommend the Tempest. It's super fun and it's pretty well known too. Yeah, I really like this sonata.
To the audience, I hope you've enjoyed these two pianists' insight. And thank you for your time.